Honestly, if somebody wants to be a professional fighter, it's a lifestyle.
Hello, my name is Savon Jones. I'm here interviewing the godfather of Maryland MMA. How you doing today?
What's up, Savon?
So, what's your name, how old are you, and where are you from?
John Rollo, 49 years old, and I'm from Baltimore.
So, since you're the godfather and you're a retired fighter, what is fighting all about physically and psychologically?
Shoo, that's a big question. Honestly, if somebody wants to be a professional fighter, it's a lifestyle. It's not really like a certain thing. You can't part-time it. If you really want to be successful, you want to take it to a professional level, it's a lifestyle. You have to...
Commitment.
Yeah, man, you got to be committed. You have to be disciplined. Obviously, you have to be tough, both mentally and physically. And you have to be open-minded, have to be receptive to coaching, and if you have an area where somebody thinks you're deficient, you have to be open to that criticism, right, and be able to fix those things.
Right.
So if somebody shuts out the coach, it's normally not a good thing, because we can see from the outside what's going on better than the person that's up in the mix, and but yeah, being mentally tough, physically tough, and again, like, lifestyle change. Can't hang out and party all day, right, and then come to the gym and train later at night.
Yeah.
The two don't work well because you're just constantly counteracting each other.
Yeah.
So
it's any progress.
Yeah, it's important for the people to eat properly, do the things outside of the gym, like resting and cardiovascular training and things other than the technique training that you do.
Okay. So since you're a retired fighter, how did you transition from fighter to basically being the originator in Maryland, or you could say like the business side of MMA?
Yeah, I think what really pushed me in that direction was an injury. I was training for a fight, tore my ACL, and when I tore my ACL, I was out for roughly a year. So during that time, I was in the school all the time, and being around the gym and being more focused on the gym, it kind of like blew up. Like, we went from like 30, 40 people to almost 100 people.
Okay.
So, your dad knows when I started, like, I was already, I want to say older, but for a fighter I was. Like, I didn't even start training jiu-jitsu till I was 29. So I made it quick, rapidly I made it up the ranks and was able to get out there and do it. But when I hurt my leg, the UFC wasn't mainstream like it is now.
Yeah.
The school, you could see, was an opportunity to build a residual income.
Exactly.
In the beginning, the school was more of a place where we just could train, and it kind of supplemented our ability to go out and compete and fight. And then, again, at this point, I'm in my low to mid 30s, and what is the big future for me in fighting? So I had to check my ego and say, do you want to invest in the school and the business of the school and invest in getting mixed martial arts legalized and putting on the fights here, or do I want to chase my vanity and so that I could say, hey, I was in the UFC and stuff. So I made a conscious decision really at that point to focus on the business side and try to develop a residual income versus just being out there, maybe going to fight in the UFC. And when I was coming up, your first fight in the UFC was like 2000 and 2000. Now guys are making like 12 and 12 for the first one. So it ain't a ton of money, but hell, if you're on the undercard and you have the ability to win $24,000 for going out there and fighting, it's a little more lucrative than knowing I could go out and make four, but I could stay at the gym and make more than that. You know what I mean?
So you just adapted, basically.
Exactly. I just started saying, hey, time to make money with my brain instead of my fists.
So what made you want to get MMA legal in Maryland, and what was that process like for you?
It went easier than I expected. I thought I was going to have a lot of pushback, but we had less than expected. Honestly, I got it done in one session, and to get a law passed here in the state of Maryland in one session is not an easy task. But the way I did it, I went at them with the money, side of things. That's money always talks. So we went through economic ways and means, and we're showing them through the tax money that we pay and the licensing money that we would pay, the ancillary stuff, the people that go to the restaurants and the clubs and the hotels, all that money comes into the state and to the city. So that was kind of how I went at that.
Yeah.
At the time, when I had stopped and was moving on to the the management side or the business side, your dad was still repping, the school and everything. So for me, it was to give your dad and the guys after him like an opportunity I never had. I didn't have the ability to fight here in Baltimore in front of our fans. Everybody always had to go to New Jersey, to New York, to California, to wherever, we were going to do these fights. And at the time, like DC had just legalized it. Virginia had it legalized. Delaware was legalizing. It was legal in New Jersey. And I'm kind of going to the state people going, why are we letting all this money escape the state? Why do I have to drive 2.5 hours to see somebody? Let's make it work here. And we were able to do that.
Okay. Sounds good. So I've been watching Shogun fights since 2009 because of my dad, So how did you get Shogun fights to grow to be as big as it is? Since you was talking about like all the other states.
Yeah, I think that the way it worked here was just surrounding myself with a good team of people and having fighters that actually hustle.
Right.
In regional promotion, a lot of the ticket sales are generated by the fighters themselves. So, your dad was a hustler. He has a big fan base. So having guys like your dad on the card were able to help us be able to put a show on at an arena, because he'll tell you, you go around the country, regional shows aren't in arenas.
Exactly.
They're fighting in casinos, they're fighting in gymnasiums, they're fighting in ballrooms. We may be the only regional show that's in an arena. So, I'm fortunate that the city supports the way it does. I was fortunate that we have, we had fighters that are able to go out there and really get it on ticket sales, and also fortunate that my relationships that I've developed throughout the years, a lot of those people sponsor the show and things like that. So it's kind of a synergy, surround yourself with a good team, make sure you have fighters that people want to see fight. And make sure that you have a good reputation so that people actually want to do business with you and help you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for your time.
All right, brother.
Is there anything else you wanted to say to the camera?
Nah, I guess thanks to everybody. Anybody out there that has been to a Shogun fight, we appreciate it. We appreciate the support, and I hope to continue doing big things here in Baltimore.
Thank you.
You got anything special? You got anything a little special? You want to show us?
I always, nah. My right hand, I keep it endless. Always, don't stick to one thing. Try to do everything. But everything is real good. Just have two little tricks. Ooh, right hand, spinning back fist, kicks, the stomach.
Right.
Just to wear the guy out. It's all about putting them on pressure, letting them live, and then putting them back on pressure. Right as you let him live, you catch him for that big counter.
Yeah, because he won't expect it.
It's a dance. Pressure and everything. Efficiency too, you gotta conserve energy. Yeah, your dad was the one in the beginning. He was the one who fought at the big show.
Yeah.
And everyone in this DC, even in the DC area at the time, he was like the biggest one. So it was cool,
That's crazy, man.
10 years we still see each other.
Moves to the other side. See the moves to the other side.
Move, he steps back, lift it up, try to step in, lift up his leg. Lift it, 2 hands and lift. Cool, big sprawl. Nice. Back down.
My name is Savon Jones. I'm here interviewing one of Shogun's fighters' coaches. How you doing today?
What's up, bud? How you doing?
I'm good. So, what's your name? Where are you from? And how old are you?
My name is Ryan Mackin. I'm 36 years old. I grew up in Columbia, Maryland. Then I moved to Baltimore, lived there about 10 years, and then a couple years ago moved out to Timonium.
Okay. So you're a retired fighter.
I am very much retired.
Are you enjoying retirement?
Absolutely. Yeah, the buffets never tasted so good.
So, since you're a retired fighter, how did you deal with the transition from fighting to coaching, and what made you want to get into coaching?
That's a really good question. I coached kind of a different, I guess in a different sport. I'm a high school wrestling coach. I've been doing that since I was 21 years old.
Okay.
So I was fighting, made my professional debut when I was 27. Started fighting about 23. So I've actually coached combat sports longer than I've been participating in mixed martial arts.
Right.
So the whole time that I was fighting, I knew eventually I wanted to get into the coaching aspect of it. It didn't take me long I was dealing with a lot of people that were very good athletes and very good fighters. It didn't take me long to realize I wasn't one of those. That my approach was going to be more of a methodical. I can teach it, doesn't mean that I can do it. And right. I think that the impact that I realized at an early age, the impact I was going to have on this sport was going to be in the corner rather than in the cage.
Right.
So when I was even fighting professionally, I was coaching and cornering a lot of the amateur fighters that we have at Team Ground Control, and then eventually transitioned into pretty much the main corner man for the professional and amateur mixed martial artists.
All right. Okay. So when you're coaching, how do you prepare yourself to get your fighters in the right mental state so they're prepared for the ring?
Wow. So getting them in the right mental state is a little bit different than the right physical state. It's when you're dealing with fighters, especially when it's like a one-on-one sport, everybody's mindset's going to be a little bit different. Some
right.
people like to take a very serious approach to it. Other people get too serious and the nerves kind of get worked up in them.
Yeah.
And they tighten up. They're not as loose out there. They kind of like a more lackadaisical mentality. The two main fighters that I have out of this gym are Jesse Stern and Tucker Lutz. Tucker is very business-like, no jokes, like his serious hat's on and he's ready to go to work. He's punched that card and he's ready to go. Jesse is the complete opposite. Jesse could go and play a ping pong game and then just step out there and fight. He's so loose about it, but it's what brings out the best in them. So developing a relationship, I've dealt with a lot of these guys, right. When they're in their late teens, early 20s, and then now into their early to mid 20s, you get to know your athletes a little bit better. You get to know the approach and kind of the things to say to them. Not only pre-fight, but during the fight, the breaks in between rounds, you need to say the right things to them to make sure that they get the proper output.
I didn't expect it. That's different. That's really different. So since you're a retired fighter now, do you have to be in any type of physical shape to keep up with them in order to coach them?
Oh God, no. No, I never have to be in good shape to take a butt kicking. So these guys are pros, like a lot of them, and the other ones are up and coming amateurs.
Right.
They're going to be better than me. It's okay. I'm not going to go out there in front of thousands of people and get my hand raised ever again. Mm-hmm. So I don't need to win in the practice room. I just need to make them work to beat me up. I don't need to be in that great of a shape, shape to get beat up. So the outcome is the same regardless. I try to keep myself in good shape for a lot of different reasons. My father passed away at an early age from, he suffered from congestive heart failure and had issues along those lines. So I want to make sure that I can keep myself in good shape. I don't have any kids, but when I do, I want to make sure that I'm around for a lot of the activities and I can kind of move around with them still. And hopefully they have the same interests that I do. If they don't, then that's cool too, and I can pretend to know what I'm talking about in those things. So I do try to keep myself in somewhat good condition. I think compared to your average mid-30s to 40-year-olds, I'm probably doing pretty well for myself. Right. But that, and I have a wife that's more of a life auditor, so she's in my ear all the time. Every time I reach that extra slice of pizza or whatever the case may be, she's always there to remind me about how much weight it looks like I've gained.
So since you're a retired fighter also, what struggles do you see in your fighters that you saw in yourself?
What struggles do I see that they have and that I had as well? Yeah. Very good question. Not as much, and I think that's a combination of a couple of things. One, the whole point of me coaching based on experience is to hope that they don't make the same mistakes that I do. The same reason why your parents are telling you not to do things and it seems annoying. Right. It's the exact same thing, that they've probably made those mistakes and they want you to be a better person than they are. Exactly. I want them to be better fighters than I am. So I want to really preach based on the mistakes that I made coming up. And look, I realized that the sport was archaic when I was competing. In the last 10 years, the sport has evolved a whole lot, and it's really come a long way. These guys are phenomenal athletes. They're great all-around fighters, and the days of the one-dimensional fighter are over. It's not difficult. I just want to make sure that they're better than I am. Exactly. As far as things that I see the same, a young man in his 20s that is getting a little bit of attention from his peers or the community or social media or whatever the case may be. There's still going to be young men that get that kind of attention. You sort of need to bring them back into reality a little bit. Hey, you're not as good as you think you are, no matter how many Facebook thumbs you get or whatever it is. It's trying to keep them humbled at the same time, make sure that they have they don't get, their head doesn't get too big to fit in the door and come in here and do work.
Okay. So, what one word of advice could you give a fighter while they're in the ring?
While they're in there?
Yeah.
Jeez. Build a time machine, go back and become a lawyer or a doctor or something. It all depends. Again, it's a case-by-case basis. The cool thing about this sport is there's so many different aspects to it. There's fighting on the ground. There's fighting standing up. Sometimes it'll be something as small as, hey, when that guy throws his jab, he's cycling his punch. He's open to be, for a counter punch. It could be something so small like that, or it could be something so large as, hey, your counts aren't landing on your feet. We need to get this to the ground. He's really heavy. He's slow getting his kickback. I think you can catch it and get him down and put him on his back. I don't think he's going to like, the outcome there. Another thing I do is when we're in the corner, the person's sitting down breathing heavy, I'll say, hey, repeat to me what I just said. And just the reason why is maybe they hear it, but they don't listen. But then when they repeat it the second time, they hear themselves say it. Then it kind of comes to a thing. And when they have to think about it, it slows their breathing down, the heart rate starts. And that's another thing that the first 10 seconds, hey, just take a deep breath. Take a sip of water. Clear your head now. And I say, okay, are you with me? Because we have a minute to work with between rounds. What's the difference between 50 seconds and a minute? I'll still be able to get my message across, whatever it is. So I just want to make sure that all the distractions, the heavy breathing, the heart rate, all that stuff slows down. We're focused on one another to have ourselves a little heart to heart. So that's kind of the advice that I give them in the ring or in the cage, like in the corner while the fight's going on. Anybody that looks into getting into the fights, I just remind people that and it's not just fighting, it's anything. I talk to my wrestlers about it, and this is not only in the wrestling room, but academically as well, that your results, they always, no matter what you do, your results will always reflect your commitment level. Mm-hmm. So no matter how what it is, how high the mountain is, it doesn't make a difference. Whatever you want to do, the harder you work at it, the more satisfied you'll be with your results. Right. That doesn't mean that everything comes as easy to you as it does to other people. No, it doesn't. But the whole point of it is putting the best version of you, whether it be in the ring, on the wrestling mat, in the classroom, at your job, whatever the case is. If you are willing to work hard towards it, you are going to put the best version of you out there in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and you can be satisfied with those results when you look in the mirror the next day.
That's some good advice. That's some good advice.
I try.
Well, I hope your coaching career goes far.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You produce some good products.
They're doing okay. They're making me look really, really good. So these guys make it really easy on me.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I just really appreciate the time and
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
My name is Savon Jones. I'm here to interview Shogun Fights fighters. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. So, what's your name? Where are you from, and how old are you?
My name's Tucker Lutz. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm 23 years old.
Good. That's good. So, what made you want to get into MMA? Like, what led you to this career? Because not many people want to actually fight.
Well, I had been a fan since my freshman year of high school. I got real into it, and been wrestling my whole life, which is, in my opinion, the strongest base going into it. So, never really accomplished what I wanted to in wrestling. So, my senior year of high school, it was during lacrosse season. I was a 12-season athlete. I, was just bummed that I never finished my wrestling career like I wanted to. So, started training MMA, and then it was like 2 months later I had my first amateur fight, and it was just all downhill from there.
Oh, so wrestling basically got you started into it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, who inspired you to become an MMA fighter?
Uriah Faber. That was my biggest influence as a young man. So
he's dope. He's really dope.
I got to train at his gym last July, and he'll actually be there April 14th at Royal Farms Arena. So yeah, he's one of the featured fighters or a featured guest. So that'll be exciting.
That's crazy, man. When you're fighting, what is your thought process? What's your mindset when you're in the cage?
I try to have, as little thoughts as possible. I pretty much get in the mindset of the work has already been done, and just being as present as possible, and just knowing that instinct will kick in, and just trying to soak up everything.
Okay, so you're not like, I'm going in there, I'm going for the kill?
Oh, well, I'm always going for the finish, but as far as emotion goes, I try to bring close to none in, and just go in and execute is really
okay.
That's what I try to do.
What was there ever a point during this training camp or like throughout your career that you felt like you wanted to give up?
Oh, all the time, man. Not this. I can't say in this training camp, but I've been training for close to 6 years. Since I was 17 years old, and I'm coming in and getting your butt kicked, and just being beaten down by the grind, the weight cut. It's, plenty of times you feel like quitting, you feel like giving up, but it was really my first loss. I lost my professional debut, and just got lazy for that camp, and I had a successful amateur career, so got a big head going into it. But it was that feeling of loss that any time that I got that glimpse of wanting to quit, I would just think of the pain of that and just completely block it out. Yeah, exactly.
So you talked about your weight cut. What's your diet when you're getting for preparation for a fight?
I've toyed around with a bunch of different modalities, but for me, it's what seems to work is just eating real whole foods. Lean proteins, lots of veggies, and timing my carbohydrates based on my work output. So
okay.
But it's never fun to get that weight off, especially towards that.
All right. So what's your biggest obstacle when in the ring in training?
Well, I guess it's just for me, because we're at a point, or I'm at a point anyway, where I'm not sustaining myself off of fighting financially. So
right.
I work a full-time job on top of this. So it's hard, working 40 plus hours a week, doing, physical labor, on top of training 6-7 days a week. So, and then trying to have somewhat of any type of social life is nearly impossible in the 9 weeks of a training camp. So I guess that would be my biggest obstacle, but it's not hard for me to cut out all the nonsense, because as cool as it is to be able to kick it with your friends, I just have tunnel vision, so it's easy for me to sacrifice that.
So, would you say that this is worth it?
Oh, hell yeah. 100%.
Okay.
100%.
So basically balance and just balancing all this together and then trying to keep the grind going.
Exactly. Yeah, because you gotta allot your time for, for training. For me anyway, I think it's vital to have time to see your family,
Right.
to see my fiance, see my parents, and I just feel when I'm in a training camp and I'm at my best, I'm at my optimum, is when I'm at my most balanced.
Okay. What's your next step for your career?
Just keep putting people away, man, as swiftly as possible. I'm on a 4-fight win streak, 4 finishes.
It's tough.
2 weeks will be fifth
Sure.
finish straight. So all I can do is go in and have decisive wins, and then sooner or later UFC will be calling. That's really all I can do.
Hope that happens for you, man.
Yeah, it will.
So how do you plan to win on April 14th?
I plan on late first round KO. That's how I see this fight going. I feel like my boxing is going to be too much. My pressure is going to be too much. And I also wouldn't be surprised if I win via guillotine choke,
Okay.
like last fight, swiftly.
So, is there anything you have to say?
No, I just I want to thank you for taking the time to interview me. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
giving me the time.
Yeah, no problem. And
Yeah. Hope the best for you.
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And everybody come see him out on April 14th, Shogun Fights. How you doing today?
Good, man.
What's your name? Where are you from? And how old are you?
My name is Skylar Suto, 29 years old, from Ellicott City, by way of Benicia, California.
For real?
Yes, sir.
So, what led you to the MMA? What made you want to become an MMA fighter?
Man, it's kind of a roundabout story. So, I mean, I've been getting in fights since I was a little kid. So, I used to get in street fights growing up as a little kid. Really, I didn't stop getting in street fights until I started martial arts. It kind of gave me an outlet for all that energy and some of that negativity, and let me refocus it in a more positive direction. Eventually, after I graduated college, I found myself working in a 9-to-5 job. I was IT recruiting. I didn't like it very much. Basically, one day I just had enough of that job. I went to my boss, told him I quit, moved to Thailand, and decided to pursue MMA full time.
For real?
Yeah.
So this is your full-time job right now?
No, I have another job as well.
Oh,
I have
okay.
I have a 9-to-5 job, and then this is more of a hobby for me right now. But
Okay.
hopefully, if I keep winning fights,
Yeah.
then maybe eventually it could be a full-time job.
I hope the best for you, man.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
What inspired you to become an MMA fighter? Like, no, who inspired you?
Probably my favorite fighter as I was coming up had to be BJ Penn.
Mm-hmm.
Just his style, his attitude. He was willing to fight anyone, man. He
Yeah.
fought at light. We fought all the way from featherweight to light heavyweight. Fought Lyoto Machida at light heavyweight. So just his whole attitude and his style.
Right.
He's the first guy that I really watched in MMA that made me be like, yeah, I want to try to be like that.
So, since you're talking about attitude and style and just his whole, like, persona about him, what's your, like, thought process and mindset, like, when you're going into the ring?
Be aggressive, man. Like, it changes from fight to fight depending on the opponent as well. You kind of got to mix up your game plan depending on who you're fighting. For this fight, I'm fighting a guy that I fought before, and I beat him before. Last time I fought him, I was really aggressive. I came out, got in his face right away. Ideally, I'm looking to do something similar. Keep the pressure on him, and just be confident and we put in enough work here in training that kind of when you're fighting out there, it's all instinct anyways. So I just want to be aggressive and sort of let my training express itself, not think too much about it.
Yeah, so basically you're just like, well, I know what to do, so I'm just going to handle it.
Yeah, so just go out there, be aggressive, and whatever you've been training to do will happen when you're out there. If you've been training hard and you've been training the right way, it'll show itself when you get out there.
That's a good mindset.
Yeah, man.
So, what obstacles do you face while in training camp, while in the ring, in life?
Just trying to balance everything, man. There's so much. Like, as an MMA fighter, we're pro athlete, but you're not an NBA player where it's
Right.
like, this is what you can do. Like I said, I have a 9-to-5 job. Things are crazy at my job right now. So, I'm working like 8 to 10 hours a day at my job, working weekends, and then I have to train on top of that, and then I'm also teaching classes. So just trying to balance like every aspect of life and fit MMA into it as well.
Yeah. So, do you think like MMA is all worth it, like to sacrifice like all that time for?
Yeah, man. Of course, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think it was. Like I said, I've been fighting since I was a little kid, since I can remember. So, if I wasn't doing MMA, I would probably still be fighting, but less controlled, safe environment, probably getting in trouble for it. So,
Right.
it's something that it's just a part of you. I think some people just have that in them. They need to fight. They enjoy fighting. There's something in you that just drives you to fight and compete. So, for me, it's MMA.
What kind of diet are you on with this, preparing for a fight?
I'm pretty strict with it. I would say 90% of the time I can stick to a good diet. Chicken and rice, mostly chicken and rice with a little bit of sauce on it. I'll mix the sauce up to try to make it different every week. Protein shakes, and then every once in a while I'll just grab some fast food if I'm feeling lazy, man, McDonald's or whatever. But I'd say 90% of the time I could stick to a strict diet, especially now as it's getting closer to the fight. It's pretty much all chicken and rice.
Yeah. Gotta stay focused.
Yes, sir.
So, what's your like next step or like goals you have for your MMA career?
Just win this next fight, man. One fight at a time. I don't think it's nice to sometimes imagine yourself fighting for bigger and bigger shows, but I think you're doing yourself a bit of a detriment trying to think too far ahead. I mean, each fight is a very dangerous experience. You can get hurt even when you win fights. I've broken my hand in fights that I've won. So thinking too far ahead is probably not beneficial for you. I try to just win this next fight, and then when it's time for the next fight, I'll focus on that one. And if I can keep winning, things will fall into place like they should be. If I'm taking my life day by day the way I should be, training the way I should be, handling my work the way I should be, and focusing on one fight at a time, then things are going to fall into place the way they need to.
Exactly. Yeah. So, how do you plan to win your fight on April 14th?
However it takes, man. However it takes. I'll probably knock him out. I think I'll knock him out. Last time I got the TKO on him, so I feel pretty confident that I'm better than him with the hands, with the feet, with the jiu-jitsu. If he tries to take it to the ground, I'll submit him, but I think I'll probably knock him out.
Very confident, very confident. I like it. Well, I hope the best for you on April 14th.
Thank you, sir.
And
appreciate your time.
Thank you for giving me your time.
Absolutely, man.
Is there anything you want to say to the camera?
No, April 14th. Come out and see me do my thing, man. You guys will enjoy the fights. I promise.
How you doing today?
How's it going?
It's going good. So what's your name, where are you from, and how old are you?
My name is Rob Sullivan. I'm 34 years old, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland.
What made you get into the sport? Like, what led you into MMA?
Grew up a wrestler, and just did a lot of different things in my life. But I found jiu-jitsu in like 2000, Brazilian jiu-jitsu in like 2006. And a bunch of my friends were starting to get into fighting, and they were kind of like, "Hey man, you want to come in and just try to take us down," type of thing. And you get humbled pretty quickly, trying to figure it out. And like off and on through the years, I would come in and train and be more active and less active, and had a lot of other stuff going on. And then by like 2009, I was like, all right, I want to at least compete. I did a ton of jiu-jitsu tournaments and started boxing and kickboxing, and then didn't really think I was gonna fight. And then 2011, kind of like a card was coming up in Virginia. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go try that. So I started getting ready for it, and had like a normal camp and stuff. And the guys that had fought sort of helped me through it from my gym at Baltimore Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then it kind of was, you get a taste for it. At that moment, you're like, oh, okay, now I want to do this. You just hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because not everybody likes to fight, so
yeah,
just
the funny thing is, I didn't get in fights when I growing up. I had parents who constantly were, you know, walk away. You don't get anything. So you want to do good things with your life. You don't do that. Like, try to avoid it. But I had a tendency. I worked security. I did a lot of different things, especially with wrestling. I always I wasn't anybody to back down for someone. I just avoided. Like throwing a punch. I didn't want to get into it that way. I was usually the friend that broke up my other friends fighting or stupid stuff like that. I avoid the bad situation that I see coming. And now I kind of walk head first into it. So.
Right. That's great. Who inspired you to become an MMA fighter?
I mean, I was watching MMA from one of my friends had videos. And I watched it when it first started, but then I got, you know, obviously there's just that time where it sort of fell off, and I remember, you know, that 2005 era when Ultimate Fighter showed up, all the eyes were on the sport.
Yeah.
You know, it started coming to the mainstream, but you know, you had your Matt Hughes, your wrestlers, people like that, you know, GSP, those types of guys really, you know, kind of opened my eyes. I've never been like, oh, I love that one knockout artist or anything like that. I always looked at the grappler, wrestler guys, and then slowly my appreciation for boxing and all that type of stuff grew, and then I took that more seriously. And there's always those certain fighters who I've kind of always been, that's my favorite fighter type thing.
So when you're in the cage and it's like the bell's about to ring, what's your thought process in your mind state?
Freaking terrified. It's I've had this talk with so many other fighters, and I've never heard anybody say anything really too much differently. The emotional roller coaster you go through in the back, you go from feeling, you know, like I'm untouchable, nothing can break me, to what the hell am I doing? Where did I go wrong in life? I think when you get into the cage and it actually shuts, there's this like weird calm that comes over you. Right. That like, well,
we're here now.
There ain't nothing, and you all the weird fluster and like the butterflies, all that stuff is there, but it suppresses itself for a moment, and you're just like, all right, let's do this. First punch, like whatever, you know, however it lands first, whatever happens first, it kind of sort of just washes it away, and then you're just like, all right, let's go.
Let's get it. So what's your biggest obstacle while being an MMA fighter?
As a whole, balancing real life. When I was younger doing it, it was much easier. Obviously, like I've lived on my own since pretty much a year out of high school, 2 years out of high school, and I've always kept my bills really low. I've always went after things that really didn't require me to have a lot of money. They just were like my dreams, my goals, whatever. Right. And I've been fortunate in a lot of ways to have support in that way. But when it came to fighting, it was the balance of trying to grow older as you're doing this becomes harder and harder. Trying to have a real life, and by real life I mean family, marriage, whatever. Social life. Social life. Social life's never really, like, it just kind of happens. Like, if it happens, it happens. Luckily, it's never been that important to me to go out and do things. I like going to the movies, but that's about it. But the balancing a life with someone else is very difficult. I've never done it well. One of the sad facts of fighting is my record is so much better when I'm single than when I'm with somebody. And now I'm about to get married, so it's
hopefully that's
how it works. Yeah.
Hopefully that's gonna canter. What kind of diet are you on? It's like, since you're talking about balance, how do you balance your diet?
I wish I ate perfectly all the time, but that is not the case. Out of camp, I eat pretty well out of camp. I also eat a lot out of camp. That's probably the problem. So I like sweets. But it's more like I eat really normal, healthy food, and then I have dessert. That's the big difference. In camp, closer it gets to the fight, the less food I'm eating. Right. I get a little stricter on calorie intake and how much of this I'm eating, how much of that I'm eating. There's a lot of measuring done and things like that. So it's you gotta kind of weigh it all out. My one rule for in camp is always like I try to eat before my last training session. So between 4 and 5, I'm having like dinner usually, and then I fast the rest of the day. Aside from like, you know, get done this, I'll drink. I'll either carb or protein, something, because I know I have to recover, because
Right.
I don't want to be totally fasting right now. Next week is when it gets like that, when
That's
I'm
terrible.
really, you know, killing
Yeah.
myself in a lot of ways, literally.
So, what's your next step in your MMA career?
It's funny. This is actually supposed to be it. This fight is supposed to be it. That's what we say, right? I'm of the thought right now that I'm gonna call it a day after this fight.
Right.
Mainly because of injuries and a lot of different other things just sneaking up. If that feeling doesn't go away, or you know, a year from now I feel differently, then whatever. I'm leaving it kind of open. But I do feel like at a place right now where I need to stop,
Right.
to either step back and like deal with real life, or I'm gonna be balancing too many things.
Yeah.
Right now, trying to start businesses, do a lot of different things all at once, it just adds to it, and it's too much. You can't you can't have your foot in so many doors. You know, you try to do all these different things, and whatever metaphor you want to use, it just eats you
get
up.
out of control.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you have to say?
No, thanks. It's
Yeah.
great.
Thank
Your
you for
dad-
your time.
No problem. Your dad is an amazing man.
Make some noise for Legend Rob Sullivan! Your referee in charge of the action is Keith Peterson.
How should I cut this up?
I said you're not in the way. He's quick.
All the way down.
The Shogun! Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we bring you our main event of the evening. From the Maryland Athletic Commission, overseen by Executive Director Patrick Canella. Your MSAC Commissioner in attendance is Chuck Gass. Scorekeepers is Joe Giordano and Pat Canella, and your timekeeper is John Gradowski. At this time, we bring you your main event of the evening for the 145-pound Shogun Vice Championship. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner. He stands 5'7" tall and weighing in at 145 pounds. Fighting out of Team Ground Control out of Baltimore, Maryland. Please welcome Tucker Top Gun Lutz. Tucker, right here, bud.
Let's go.
Tuck. A hard round. I mean, you guys went back and forth for 3 rounds. You're the champ. Could you see this going any other way?
I'm honestly pretty disappointed with my performance. I come in here trying to knock people out, submit them, and I came up short tonight. Sorry, y'all.
I mean, that was a big win over a Cracker veteran, so I don't think the apology's needed. What was the game plan coming in this season?
The game plan honestly was chop up his legs and box him, and he fucked my legs, so I'm sorry. Excuse my friend. So, it is what it is. I'll get the finish next time.